You know, I think we don't see things that are happening with us in our lives. And I was talking to a few people and I said, what are those things? What bothers you? And what are some of the things that we are afraid of? And sometimes what we're angry about, we're afraid of. What are we angry about? What are we afraid of? We're afraid of becoming unhealthy. We're afraid of getting something that we can't get out of. We're afraid of money situations that we can't solve. We're afraid of getting older and not having security. We're afraid of how we're going to take care of parents if something goes wrong. We're afraid of death. We're afraid of losing people that we love. We're afraid of losing that job at the wrong place and at the wrong time. What do we do? Everything that you deal with in life is not just practice, but it is preparation for the next step. I think we have taught people for so long that real faith is about avoiding storms, about being able to speak wonderful words and make storms disappear. But Jesus, who is one of the greatest teachers ever, didn't always speak to storms to make them go away. Sometimes Jesus walked through them and ignored them. Sometimes you don't just try to make them leave. You learn to ignore them and walk through them. Either way, the storm is of no consequence. What can I say about life today? Everywhere we look, pick up the newspaper. Now it's not just the newspaper, but we turn on our cell phones, our iPads. CNN pops up, Washington Post pops up. Something is always going on. And we feel challenged everywhere. Sometimes the opportunity to go higher is in what we've been doing all along. Just preparation. Don't get discouraged. Don't get bent out of shape. Because a lot of what you deal with is preparation. The road signs. Your life, your best life, is up ahead of you. Don't give up now. I believe that thing that you really desire is right around the corner. And I think you're ready for it. Yeah. Make the shift. Hey, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Hit that subscribe button. Smash it, crash it. Let us know you're there. Hello, I'm Ed Montgomery. Welcome to After Dark. After Dark is not just about after physical darkness. It's about what comes after the darkness, after dark. In other words, dark is not just something we stay in. Dark is something that we go through because light does come, joy does come, change does come. And so we believe that it's after the darkness that things that are great will take place. So welcome to it. I am the founder and director of Abundant Life Cathedral that's been in existence in Houston, Texas for over 40 years, and also the present spiritual guide and spiritual director of Abundant Life Center for Dynamic Living in the city of Katy, Texas. And it's a fantastic place. You can look it up. You can go to mylc.org and look those things up. And also make sure you can hit that subscribe button on YouTube and hit the like button on Facebook. Like is one of the most important things you can do because it's algorithms. And although we don't like to talk about it, we do like algorithms because it reaches out to more people. It puts us in a better position. Now, here recently, I've decided to take a plunge into study. And so I took a plunge. I told them this past Sunday that I moved deeper into some history. I had to go back to reading. I wanted to read some American history. So I dug deep into some American history. Now, I'm not talking about, or should I say, the history of America, because American history and the history of America can be two different things. American history can be the history of the American myth, or we can talk about the history of America, which is the true history of America and real human beings that helped to found this country. Why? What were they thinking? Why were they thinking? And then I went in to dig into Christian history, or the history of Christianity. I don't like to do that too often. Every time I dig into the history of Christianity, I always come up with wondering how in the world did some of these people get away with what they did? How in the world do we still have what we call a faith or a system of belief after you're seeing and hearing about all the history and how things took place, and all the way from the history from the time of Jesus to where we are right now? So when you take the history of America and you take the history of Christianity and you begin to merge them together, and believe me, they are merged. They are connected. Connected to such an extent that when you start looking at the myths of America and how connected they are to the Christianity of America, and you have these Christian myths that have crossed over into American myths, and you ask yourself the question, well, that was then, but oh my goodness. When you take that template of then and look at what's now, and you place that template over today, or you place what I call those two charts, yesterday and today, the past, the present, and you place these two charts together, you start looking at different signs and connections and saying, wow. Now, believe me, when you look at Genesis chapter 1, it talks about how God had the lights in the heaven, and these lights or stars were for signs. And people say, well, I don't follow the stars. Well, it's not about following stars. Well, not to me. And listen, there are people who do these kind of things, and they seem to be very good at what they do. But I look at those things as, well, like many of those shepherds did. They looked up at the stars, and people learned from ancient history that if you could watch the stars, you can learn when to plant your corn or plant your wheat. You can learn when's the best time to harvest, when's the best time to dig up the ground, when are the seasons about to change. You can learn all these things. Almanacs learn these things. We learned how these things work. And you can watch them just watching the stars and even the movement of the planets. But we go a little deeper. We go into history and we go into the present. We look at the newspaper of today, maybe the newspapers of 1700, and we pull them together and we ask ourselves the question, how did people think 200, 300, 400 years ago? How did people think during the times of Jesus 2,000 years ago? We know people thought differently back then because they didn't have CD players or audible books to be able to read. If they could read at all, and so their knowledge was limited. It didn't mean they didn't have knowledge. They had the knowledge of the world that they lived in order to live in it. But now that the world has changed, where our knowledge is not necessarily better than their knowledge, but is the knowledge we need to live in the world we have. So I began to look at all of these things going on. Then I looked at the news. The news. And of course, I've looked at all of the former president stuff and the what was it? The the indictments, and now it's not just indictments. He's been charged and he's been found guilty. I looked at all of that. But more than anything, just like the history of Christianity and the history of America, I wanted to look behind the scenes, not at the former president, because to me, it's almost like I'm looking at the Wizard of Oz. Not the real wizard, but the wizard that was on the picture in the original Wizard of Oz, and where it was says, "I'm the Wizard of Oz." Boom, boom, fire and smoke coming out and scared the living daylights out of Dorothy and the Cowardly Lion. But when they finally came back and they were a little stronger, they had beat the Wicked Witch, and they had the Wicked Witch's broomstick. And they said, "Now, wizard, we did what you said. Now do what you promised." And the wizard started to trying to move away from what he promised, as if, well, you might have to do something else. Well, there are other things that see how things come together. People not doing what they promised, and now we are living in today's world with broken promises until they discovered something. Toto, the little dog, finally pulled the curtain and revealed the man behind the curtain. And what was the man behind the curtain doing? Pulling levers, causing the fire, causing the torment, causing the distraction, and using his own amplified voice as the wizard. So we realized that the wizard was not what was on the screen, but the manifestation of what one person was doing behind the curtain. I wonder what's behind the curtain. This is spiritual things. We want to know what's behind the curtain. When we look at politics, when we look at education, when we look at how people are talking about racism, people are talking about getting the wrong end of the stick, people are talking about my rights, I want my country back, I want to make America great again. All of these different things we're asking and talking about. It seems like there is something behind the curtain. And what it's going to take is something that I call spiritual discernment. Say it with me, spiritual discernment. Now, those of you that are watching, hit that like button if you like what we're talking about right now. Hit that like button right where you are. Share this with somebody. Not only that, let me know where you're watching this from. If you're not in Houston, what city? If you're not in Texas, what state? If you're not in America, United States of America, what country are you watching this in? And this is where we would ask for spiritual discernment. Now, where does spiritual discernment come from? It's not just praying. It's not just asking God to give it to me. Spiritual discernment, first of all, starts by reading, expanding your education. And when you expand your education, you expand the hooks from which you can hang spiritual garments upon. The more hooks you come up with, the more spiritual things you can hang. In other words, the more you expand the closet of your spirituality. Listen, I'm going to be honest. You need to ask yourself where you go to church. What are you hearing when you get in there? One of the things we came up with is the church you attend. Are you there to be saved? Or are you better off being there to be safe? Is your church just about being saved, but not being safe? Safe for what? Listen, don't go anywhere. I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk about it. And I will see you right on the other side in just a couple of minutes. Watch this. Watch this. Let me break in here for a second. I want to tell you a little secret. There is something I used to do. It was commodity trading. And they used to have something on the list called winter wheat. I never knew what it was, never paid any attention to it because in my northern background, all I saw in the winter was hard ground, snow. How could anything grow? Well, I learned different. I learned that winter wheat was something that was planted around the fall, around September, October. And when it was planted, they didn't just throw the seed out there on the ground. Of course, it would be too hard. But they drilled down into the earth and almost like planted them one by one. Now, when the snow came and the winter came, it would go dormant. But when the spring came, it would come up again. And they would harvest it around that time. Winter wheat. In other words, there are things in our lives that we plant in times when people think they won't grow. There's a number 9 that I believe symbolizes finality. It symbolizes harvest. It symbolizes the end of something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10, you start all over again. This is 2024. 2, 2, 4 equals 8. New beginnings. But watch this. You can plant during the new beginnings, but you can't eat the harvest until later. When you plant something, it takes time. Sometimes it's dormant. Sometimes there's a winter. Sometimes you feel like everything is shut down, just like the earth is shut down in the winter. But you know what? Spring is coming. A different kind of growth is about to take place. So what you thought was not going to happen is going to happen. It's a seed that you plant in the earth. The seed and the need. The need is in the seed, and the seed is in the need. So whatever it is that you need, and whatever needs you see around you, plant it. It might be $9.90. It might be, for those of you who have it, and people have it, it might be $90.90, or it might be $99.90, whatever. Put a 9 in that offering. It might just be $9. Whatever it is, take the time. Plant it now. You can call the number. You can text to give. People love it. 713-742-2035. That's 713-742-2035. Or you can go to myalc.org. I love myalc.org. It's safe. It's secure. And you can hit that donate button, smash it, crash it, hit it. Let it be known that you're there. And you will see how to do it. Look, there are a lot of needs around in this world. There's going to be a lot of issues coming up. It's going to look like everything is lying dormant. But remember, if you put your seed in the ground, it's already coming up while you're not thinking about it. In the wintertime, it's not the heat from the sun outside that will grow this seed. Guess what? It's going to be the warmth of the sun inside that will make this seed come to life. It's going to be a warmth, like warm oil inside of you. Give, you'll feel it, and it will make a difference not only in the lives of others, but also in your life. All right? We love you. Stay blessed. You know, when I look at religion today, you could easily get discouraged, especially if you get into the history of Christianity and how you realize how the Portuguese took the Catholic religion and believed in this empire of kings and believed in the right of kings. And what they believed was Whoever had the greatest or the vastest kingdom would wind up being the emperor, not just of a country or an empire, but the head of the entire world. And so Portuguese wanted to be in charge more so than the Spanish. So you had Portugal, Spain, they all had their boats. And then you had the English who were getting involved into it. And all of them had their Christianity. Portugal and Spain had their Christianity. They had the Pope was involved. Catholicism, which we don't really call it back then, that was actually the church. You didn't call it the Catholic Church, it was the church. But as they got up into England, you got into what was called the Reformation, when there was a protest. In other words, Protestants. In other words, there was someone that protested against the Catholics. And it was these, Martin Luther, people like that. And they created the Protestant church, the kind of churches, your Baptist, your Methodist, your sanctified churches. All these are considered Protestant or protester churches. But then in England, you had people that were called separatists, who believed in being separated. There were those who were called protesters, who protested everything. These people were shipped over from England, and they brought over to America these concepts of believing that they were superior because they believed they had the superior religion, because they were the superior apple of God's eye. And so when they got there, first thing they came up with were people who would work the land and your enslaved people. You had white indentured servants and you had planters. These people worked together. They actually began to relate and intermarry, but they had to separate them, and they separated them by race. And they said that if you are white or your skin is like this, you are of the white race. Now, it didn't mean that your white made you white. White became this social type of contract. It became something that people aspired to so that they could get them to look at anything that was the other as worse. And so when we look at religion today, we're now singing Onward Christian Soldiers Marching as to War. What kind of war are we after? When you get in those tight circles and get behind the scenes, you find out that the war is against, quote, other, quote, people. They are the other. Those people are not like us Christians. That's why you're seeing such division in evangelical Christianity and who they support and what other people are talking about. How can your religion be this when you preach that, but oh my God, so much has changed. So here we are in this world. What in the world can we do? It is spiritual discernment. It is time for us to get back into our studies of our spirituality. To understand, first of all, you cannot expect America to give you everything that you need. What you need is an understanding of yourself, your own self-image, to begin to teach, to begin to train yourself, to begin to know yourself, and not look to a particular president. Oh yeah, we got to vote, baby. But you can't look to the president or these other people. We got to vote down ballot. You can't look to just everybody to make you who you are. We're not fighting against the other. More than anything, we're fighting against those things that are destroying our souls, that are making us people who don't love other people. Look, I grew up in a church where some of everybody was. There were people who were Christians, those who didn't particularly claim to be Christians, people who came. They may have been gay. Some of them were couples. People would whisper, but everybody was in the same church. You had people who could smell a little alcohol in their breath every Sunday, or the cigarette smoke was deep in the choir stand. We had people that came from all walks of life, but we had to learn that we lived with each other and we called ourselves the great big family. Listen, if we don't turn back to family, those onward Christian soldiers are coming after us and won't be anything you can do. And I'm not talking about there to destroy you physically, but to destroy your mind, the way you think, and even the rights you have in your country. Listen, it's time to change. It's time to bring some light in. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was dark and empty and void. And God said, let there be light. And it was. When we start talking light, darkness will be an afterthought. I'll see you next week. See you next week. I'm bringing some people in here with me, so this is the first time that I've brought some folk into my prayer closet. I was going to do, we come before thee and we beseech thee, and knee bent and body bowed, but you know I don't talk to you that way, right? No. They don't know that you call me Edward, so they just finished that show that we did, and it's a little different, but I'm hoping we reach some people. But listen, I'm just gonna be real with you. There's some folk in my life that you're gonna have to can you get rid of them? Okay, I knew you wasn't gonna do that, but I'm not talking about rid of them. I'm talking about, can you just kind of push them back a little bit? They're messing with me. Yeah, I know. I'm trusting you for so many things, so many places in my life that I need you in. And I know you can deal with you, I'm not alone, but sometimes there's loneliness. But with you, I can get through this. I'm at the point now that I'm just going to trust you with it. Can you help with the clicks? You know, Lord, I need algorithms. You don't mess with that, right? Okay. So you don't mess with the algorithm and you can't move those people. Okay. Well, at least I'm going to get a good night's sleep. Thanks for everything else. Couldn't have made it without you. Night, Lord. This room is filled with so much energy. It is filled with abundance everywhere I go, whether I'm in this room, whether I'm in this space, whatever it is, the space where you are, even though there is glass and plastic and Wi-Fi between us, actually we are in the same space. We are in the same place. We are in the moment of now. I want you to grab a hold of this now. First of all, thank you for your contributions. Thank you for your donations, but more than anything, thank you for your partnership, because that's what enables us to reach out and to connect with more people. Take a moment. Let your gratitude show. You can text or give 713-742-2035. That's 713-742-2035. Or you can go straight to myalc.org. That's myalc.org. And you can give. Press that donate button. It will take you immediately. It'll only take a couple of minutes. Or if you're old school, you can write a check, slip it into an envelope, and And you make sure you put a stamp on it, and you can send it to Abundant Life Center or Ed Montgomery. It doesn't go into my pocket. It goes into the organization. It's the ministry. And you can send it to P.O. Box 772-300, Houston, Texas, 77215. Those are the ways to be able to send it. But once you send it, there's a way that will be made in your heart. First of all, it will be warm and loving, but it'll also open the doors for other people. And you can't beat that with a stick, as my granddaddy used to say. Thank you so much. Hey, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Hit that subscribe button, smash it, crash it. Let us know you're there.